Welcome to the first episode of
The Devil's Advocate by Blue Dot.
Yes, and I am Morgan Jacoby.
My name is Gulraiz.
And we are your hosts for today. Today we will be talking about...
Woohoo. We're going to be talking about the freedom of speech. A very paradoxical/complex idea.
Yes, political correctness. Is it good? Is it bad? Do we like it or not?
Do we need it or not? Do some people need it or not?
Yes.
Especially.
I will be playing the devil's advocate and picking con today. And Shirazi will be...
I'm just going to argue with her with the pros part. That I like it.
Okay.
In any way.
Okay.
No devil, no advocate.
Okay. So, first off, what is our issue? What do you think freedom of speech is?
As for myself, freedom of speech, I'll just read out the First Amendment of the United States Constitution because that's what comes into mind when you think about freedom of speech as an American or as not an American. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment thereof for abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So basically, the Constitution of the United States, the first thing that a person remembers is the First Amendment. The first thing it says that the people are free to say or do whatever they want. Basically, what I understand from this, rather it be saying that something I feel, rather it be on paper, like back then press was paper, or rather it be me and my buddies hanging out on the end of a street for whatever purpose is, it be private or like commercial. I can do that and the government cannot interfere because basically that's what the Americans fought for this country from the British. That's what I remember.
Freedom of speech.
Yes.
I agree with you in that we have the right to say whatever we feel is true and that sort of thing. But when does that freedom of speech become a weapon to harm each other? And shouldn't we protect ourselves from words like that become weapons?
Depends on in what context, because when we talk about using freedom of speech to basically weaponize freedom of speech, we have countless topics. We have politics, we have religion, we have hate speech, we have personal envy against each other that people can use, celebrities, politicians. It's a complex topic. What are you exactly asking me about how it weaponizes itself?
So
when?
How people target each other and encourage suicides, or they use hate speech as a weapon instead of critique as a tool to help somebody.
I think so. I'll answer that with laying a groundwork phrase or something like that, which I came up, which is remember that freedom of speech protects you from the government or the influence of government on your life, but it does not protect you from individuals. You can't say whatever you want. Like from the amendment, I understood that you can say whatever you want against the government or whatever big corporations are out there. The government can't do anything to you, but the individuals can. You'll have consequences not from the government, but from individuals.
So you think individuals should...
you can say whatever you want, but also be aware that if it's not against the government or somebody can do something against you, but not the government.
So you think we should, as individuals, hold people accountable for their words?
I'm not saying you should hold, but the people should know that they can be held accountable by other people.
You say freedom of speech is protected and it is an inalienable right. The government has nothing to say about it. Okay, but what about those people who can't stand up for themselves? The minorities or the children, when people go online and tell the 12-year-old girl that she's ugly, that she should commit suicide, those are the people who can't defend themselves. I think there should be ways of controlling that kind of language, holding people accountable legally, that those things shouldn't be allowed. There should be systems set up to protect those who cannot protect themselves.
Actual situation where a 14-year-old... I mean, was her account private or free, like open account?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't relate at all to the freedom of speech question.
Let's say the commenters were her friends, right? And she has all the right to choose her friends.
But what about that freedom of speech? Who's regulating that? Who's holding them accountable?
On the internet, no one but yourself, or you If you hate somebody or if you think they're a negative influencer in your life or toxic, you can just delete them. It's freedom.
But there's still people using those weapons against others, against minors, against the minorities, and there's nobody standing up for them.
Depends on person to person. I know people who, if someone comments negative on their post, some other people will there's good people in this world too. They will bro, no, just don't comment. It's not right. I think it's a fine line between ethics and freedom of speech that we can agree upon. Internet, it's so vast and it's so free, you can do whatever you want. All comes down to your ethics and how you were raised. I researched on it and said that in some words, freedom of speech is protected when it is political. It does not pose an imminent threat, imminent, I'll explain that how, and does not impose an immediate threat for a riot or some physical violence of some individual or a mass.
So public protests.
Yeah. So basically what I came across that you can use freedom of speech in whatever way you possible. You're standing in the street, you're yelling out, let's pretend, not hypothetical, let's pretend you're chanting hate against some religious groups, and you're standing in the public and you start to shout out the religious hate against people. Let's say you're shouting that out, that counts as hate speech, right?
Yeah.
But you can change that and still be shouting if you add some political points or facts or manipulations to it. I'm shouting against this religious group because this minority is stealing this jobs. That's setting up countless people jobless, just pretending jobless, or they're disturbing the regional peace because they have owned all the markets in the specific area to make their ethnic group markets, and they're driving people out of business, as a city in Tulsa. There's a couple of stores owned by religious minorities, and following that, some people have opened businesses across that market. Someone has opened their ethnic food restaurant. Someone has opened an ethnic dress restaurant, dress shop, and people are doing that. So I can say that I don't hate Muslims, pretending I don't hate Muslims, but Muslims are stealing our jobs, or they're doing that. So you can use freedom of speech. If you politicize it, the government will protect it for you. So I kind of support that. It's not specifically against minorities, but you can talk about everyone or anyone, but just add a political agenda to it, and the government or anyone technically cannot do anything against you.
That is wrong. That is morally.
That is protected. That's what the internet says.
Doesn't change the fact that it's morally wrong, because you are targeting people and using loopholes to make it seem like you're coming at it from a political point.
That's how every big case in the Supreme Court was won, using loopholes. That's how this country was.
Does it make it right?
That's not the point, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We're discussing whether this
morally,
is right or wrong.
ethically, it might not be right. But technically, it is
legal. Right. And that's part of what
it's
you're saying.
It's not illegal. I'm not saying it's illegal. It might not be illegal, but morally, it might be wrong, but again, people are not denied the use of these tactics. People use this. Maybe I am giving out an idea to people for doing something, but you can still do that. I support that kind of, because then minorities can use the same excuse and target to special interest groups. Politicians love special interest groups. I can name a couple, but you can still use that. That's a beneficial way for minorities to bring out their voice, that we don't have jobs and these people are taking our jobs, or we don't have a specific place because of these people in the majority or something.
I see what you're saying. You're talking about the logistics of protests and getting your voice heard. I understand that. I don't think this use of the system is morally correct, and this is what I hate about that system.
Do you have an alternative way? I mean, complete your statement and tell me.
Some kind of regulation of the kind of words that we use when talking about each other, dealing with each other. Because, sure, you can go and protest something that is politically wrong, that you disagree with, that you don't believe in, yeah, that is fine. I'd have no problem with that. Peaceful protests are good. Those are part of our system. Those are part of how we hold the government accountable and how we get our voice heard. But this protesting of minorities, of ethnic groups, of religious groups, and hiding behind, oh, it's bad, it's a political thing, that's wrong. That is using the system to the worst. That is taking advantage of it. So the next problem I have with political correctness, and you hear this a lot, especially like around a college campus, like we're both students. We hear about issues on college campuses where students are either offended or attacked verbally or are restricted, like protests, like you were talking about, protests gone so extreme, they're like, oh, they give political correctness a bad name, in essence, because they are so far in the extreme, they've gone to the other side. They're essentially doing what they're speaking up against. So there should be some sort of regulation on college campuses because those are places of learning. That's where we go to grow mentally, to learn, to become smarter and hear different opinions. But if we allow hate speech to hamper what we're saying, what others are saying around us, then we're not really learning. We're not being exposed to the world of different ideas there are out there. So it is the job of the colleges and the professors to maintain a good learning environment so that people feel safe and are exposed to a variety of opinions.
Give me 5 seconds to think on it, to think how I'll phrase it. So what I understood was freedom of speech on college campuses as a basic idea that like brings in all the ideas of posting or doing offensive things that might hurt other students or faculty or normal people, defame or something. As on the first, I said that freedom of speech can protect you against and from the government, but cannot protect you against individuals. I'll rephrase that into, let's say you're attending a public university, right? So you're technically in a government-funded or run institution. Sure, you can say whatever you want on the campus, and technically it's the government. And there's been countless cases in the past about this topic in the Supreme Court. I don't want to go into it, and to be honest, I don't know what they were. But what I've learned from them in history classes is if it's a public university, you can do whatever you want and use that same loophole method to get away from it, because technically it's a complex idea. It's the government institution. Is the government who's handling it. So you're talking about against the government. It becomes a political thing. And if the government even tries to come near you, some special interest aid, like politicians or something, can come up and defend you, or you yourself can defend yourself. But let's say it's a private institution. Let's say it's University of Tulsa, and you post something that's, let's say, just give an example. You post neo-Nazi things in the University of Tulsa, and knowing that there's like Jewish populations, there's a color population in like a University of Tulsa. Since it's not a government institution, the University of Tulsa has every right to expel you or do whatever action they can to take against you, because it's freedom of speech. But again, the government can't do anything. But if it's your employer or your private superior, whoever they are, they can. The individuals can do something against you. You should be ready for the consequences. It's about using those loopholes at the perfect way that there is possible. So if you ask me if there's freedom of speech, is morally, it's highly incorrect if I do something like that in University of Tulsa. If it was OSU, it would still be incorrect. But not OSU, sorry, any public institution. It will still be morally incorrect. But I believe they can't technically do against anything about it, except they might ask some other student organization to come confront me, or some individualist professor or a student to come confront me and convince me you're wrong.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you're saying it's legally correct, and we are in agreement. That is the
Depends
way
where
our
you are.
Constitution-
Depends where
That is
you
the way
are.
our Constitution is written. That freedom of speech is correct.
Yeah.
Is it right though?
No, I said it's morally incorrect. It's morally
Freedom of
morally wrong.
speech as a blanket is wrong.
It's right. When this country was formed, we formed it like you guys formed it, so you could get out of basically I'm not getting the word. What do you call the like family-based, generational-based like government system? What do you call it? Monarchy? No.
Monarchy.
Monarchy. We did that, and George Washington just ran for 2 terms, so he's not looked upon as a king, but rather a public servant, right? And he let other people come. So that's kind of a freedom of speech thing too. So he lets other people govern in their ways. That's why we have 2 parties in this country, because you don't agree with one, you just go to the other because the other will have totally different opinion. Freedom of speech gave the people right to vote in this country. Freedom of speech gave genders the right to do whatever they want. They gave ethnicities to have civil rights, which were denied in this country for a very long time. Not pointing any fingers, just relating the facts. It also gave some special groups, like the communities of people, to come out and live peacefully that offered them protection in this country against other individuals. Although it's not, but government interferes and kind of. So I think it's a good thing, freedom of speech. But yes, we can agree upon one thing, which I think you will too, that it has some moral and ethical limits that we can just change or work upon, while we can educate others on that. Government can't interfere, but we can like sit down, debate like this about ideas, totally hateless, like we don't hate each other, do we? No. And we can do something like that.
In conclusion, you were saying it the whole time, that there are limits to freedom of speech. And I agree with you there. And you were also saying that the government doesn't have the right, and I kind of agree with you there, that the government can't really, that isn't their job to regulate what we can or cannot say. So I'm thinking we can agree on that us as a society hold each other accountable for the words that we say, like the schools.
Exactly.
I think that's the conclusion we came to, that
Exactly.
it is the job of the community to hold everyone accountable for the words
Yes.
that come out of their mouth.
That is right. That is correct. That is what I meant.
Well done. We knocked this one out of the park, I think.
I think we did. And we don't hate each other.
We don't
That's
hate
the
each
best
other.
part. There
No,
you
we
go.
don't.
So thank you guys for watching. This was Blue Dot. My name is Gulraiz Shirazi,
I'm Morgan Jacoby.
and this was
Devil's Advocate.
Advocate. Yep. Thank you.